we kick off the hour as per usual with Real Estate Today, and we are at the 17th program in the series. Real Estate Today is sponsored by Howard Johnson Realty Limited of unit number 15, Ligony Post Mall in Kingston 6. Like I've said several times before this morning, the topic for discussion today is revamping your home for rent or sale. And my little preamble before I introduce my guests. An important part of selling or renting your home is making it welcoming and meeting the satisfaction of the buyer or the tenant. So the question is, how should we decorate our property to attract buyers or renters? I'm joined this morning, as per usual, by Howard Johnson Jr. of Howard Johnson Realty Limited. Howard, top of the morning. How are you today?
I'm fine, Richie. Up and at them.
All right. We are very happy to hear that. By the way, I got that message about half an hour ago, so I had no concerns thereafter. Nice to have you again, Howard Johnson Jr. And we have a beautiful lady who's joining us this morning, Karen Bucher, and she's the owner of Design Diva Lifestyle. Good morning, Karen. How are you?
Good morning. I am fine. I am good. Great.
Good to have you. We know that you bring a lot of energy wherever you show up, and I know that you're going to bring it here this morning. Really nice to have you.
I can hold up
Good to be here.
Now, let me start with you, Karen, on the subject of revamping one's home for rent or sale. Let me ask you, why is it important to stage, or what's the importance really of staging as it relates to a home for sale?
Okay. It is the most important thing, because what you need to understand is how your prospective renter or buyer sees your home is not exactly how you see it, right? So you have to take all of that personality, your personality, out of the home, look at it with fresh eyes, so that now whomever comes into that space will want to see themselves in it. Make sense?
Mm-hmm. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
A lot of persons are planning to stage, and they have issues in terms of choosing things like color, the different colors that they should use. As a designer yourself, give me your top 5 designer tips, if you can, to help choose paint colors like a pro.
Like a pro. Okay. So what you want to do first is to stick with the neutrals. What do I mean by neutrals? The grays, the beiges, the grays. You understand? Or a combination thereof. That's one. Then you want to create a flow throughout the house. So you're not going to do one room, in a red and in another room in a blue and so on. All of that is now gone. You're creating this flow so that when people walk in, they see a nice blank canvas, but not blank, whereas it is devoid of any kind of personality, just not so much. You want to move the needle to a real right in the middle of transitional colors as well, right? So we're not going to be, all over the place in terms of the colors. So you're going to stick to your neutrals, right? You're going to allow the light to come in and lighten up the place. So therefore, you're not going to go with anything dark, because people want to know that, light is reflected, it looks clean, it looks fresh, and it looks a bit contemporary. You also want to make sure that, as I mentioned, the light coming in, that you want to keep the place flowing, right? So therefore, it is okay for you not to have an accent wall. It's quite fine. As a matter of fact, it's encouraged for you not to have an accent wall, because whatever accent that you put into the space may not be attractive to your renter or your buyer at the time. Right? And make sure that your color palettes, whatever you use, there is a definite flow. How can you choose a color palette like just out of the blue? You can go to the fabric store. You can get a piece of fabric that has, a myriad of colors in there that has the flow. And then you can use that as a jumping off point for your walls. You just take that to the paint counter, and then you can use the background colors to create the flow in your home. Make sure, though, that you also, because you have the existing furnishings, you're not just going to go out now and get new furniture, that the colors that you are choosing for the walls go with the furniture.
Mm-hmm.
Make sense?
Let me ask you. It makes a lot of sense. Let me ask you: if one is moving from, say, the den to up to the living room and then on into the dining room, and the kitchen is just around the corner, give us an indication of a color flow that you think would work, and has worked.
Now, is this an open concept, or is this a traditional house that
Open
has
concept, yes.
Big rooms? So is it an open concept?
An open concept situation.
Okay, so an open concept home is one where there's a direct flow from one room to the next to the next. So I would do just one color, and that color would be a gray. Right?
Got you.
Because remember, your paint colors it's the backdrop for more to come. If you start off with something very dynamic, by the time you put your rugs in, your artwork, your furniture, it becomes a bit busy. So you really, especially when you want to get your home revamped for renting, you need to take all of that personality out and just make it clean, modern, and fresh.
We're hearing from a pro, Karen Bucher, and she's our guest this morning, along with Howard Johnson Jr. Howard, I want to bring you in at this point. Let me ask you, Howard, what area of a house would you advise a homeowner to invest the most in before selling?
Well, that's a very loaded question, but you have to focus on the areas that definitely need attention. So it's not just one area. But for aesthetical approaches, you may want to look at possibly the kitchen, which is something that a lot of persons focus on when they're looking at properties, how big it is, how it flows. So you may want to look at your kitchen if I was to select one single area. But when going to the market, you have to ensure that all the areas that need attention must be addressed. You don't want to leave anything hanging. You don't want to say, I'll be doing this a little later. You want to have your first impression reflecting of how you took care of your home and enticing to either the tenant or buyer.
Okay.
And if I may add,
how long before selling or renting should homeowners take before doing this whole matter of revamping?
Well, you have to make sure you get all of that out of the way before you actually go public, because the first person that comes to your property may be that first buyer or first tenant, and you don't want to turn them off by saying, I'll get to that, as I mentioned earlier, next week, or I'm going to start fixing up that. They won't see what that is like until you're completed, and they may be looking for other things in the meantime and be sold on something else before you have completed your work. So I recommend that you make sure that before you do your first showing, or you actually make mention of it to someone, make sure that you have your house in order.
Mm-hmm. Karen, I've seen you on television using a very, very small space and making it look so attractive and so big. How can sellers manipulate a small space so that buyers can get the most out of it?
You have to purge. Make sure that all of the little baby shower and bridal shower, chatka and everything, those go, right? That's the first thing that you do, because the more things or items that you see in a space, it clogs your mind, and then you have a lot of visual weight, right? And that's key. Visual weight is the more you see, the more the room contracts. Okay, if you use glass, then a glass coffee table or so on, then what you see is air around it, so therefore the light goes through and you see less, but it is functional. So when you create less visual weight, the room automatically gets bigger. That is one. Two, you use appropriately sized furnishings in the space. There's a thing called apartment-sized furniture, which is different from house-sized furniture. They're cut a little bit smaller. And in today's market, we have these spaces now that are just a little smaller. So you can't use a humongous sofa in a space that, is really meant for an 80-inch. You understand? Because when you walk into the space, all you will see is that sofa, and it'll be possibly the focal point of the room. So you're not going to be able to have yourself just go around the room and, look around and so on. You're just focused on that sofa. So you have to make sure that when, you have your renters and your prospective buyers coming into your space, your scale is right. The room has to be balanced as well. So therefore you don't have your sofa and your chair and, another chair on one side of the room, and then on the other side of the room, there's nothing. So you have to make sure that you put all of your furnishings around so that it says something. The scale and the balance is key, as well as the visual weight, especially when it comes to small spaces. Lighten up. Make sure you purge. And purge means bring your girlfriend in, the most meticulous one, and she'll tell you, no, you don't need that, you don't need that, you don't need that. Even if you have to pack them up in boxes, put them in storage, not in your home, because people will want to see how much closets that you have and the closet space. So if you're going to pack them up in boxes, don't put them somewhere else. Put them in your office or so on, because they want to see that your closets are clean and in order, because now they're buying that space and people have a lot of clothes. Yes. You understand? Mm-hmm. So the more, the neatest you can get your home, clean, fresh, and sometimes you may need to take a chair out, in order to maximize that space, because we really don't need a lot of furniture. If you have a 3-seater sofa, if you noticed how people socialize, well, when we used to socialize, two people would be sitting on a sofa. There's never really somebody in the middle, right? So therefore, you don't need such a big sofa. You can opt to trade down to a 2-seater. You understand? So it's things like that where you need the correct sized furnishings in the space. And just
makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
For that, Karen. Let me bring you back, Howard. You have our usual tip of the day, I take it?
Yes, sir.
All right. What's the tip of the day?
Yes, we'd like to encourage our listeners to test drive paint samples before committing to a color. You never know what the color will really look like until you see it in the light at every time of the day. And we're meaning day and night. So you want to ensure that you test drive those colors.
That's our tip of the day. And now let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is Ordeal on the Edge. What's the deal today, Howard?
Yes, we have a lovely 5-bedroom, 5-bathroom house in the upscale community of Hatfield Meadows in Ironshore, Montego Bay. The property features a family dining, formal living room, guest room, and a covered patio with a panoramic view of the ocean. The master suite boasts a reading nook and a dressing area with a walk-in closet. The other amenities include an electronic gate, double carport, indoor laundry, and a helper's quarters. This beautiful home is waiting for you, our listeners. It's an executive-type home, and we're asking US $1,950 for this 5-bedroom, 5-bathroom home with helper's quarters. You may contact Heather Eaton at 876-410-8066 or send her an email at heather@hjrealtors.com. Heather Eaton.
Good luck with that one, Heather. Well, gentlemen and lady, we are pretty much out. We're well past our time this morning. I want to thank you both for the information that you shared with us. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm sure that our listeners found it to be useful. Thank you, Karen. Great having you on the program today.
Most welcome.
And Howard, we catch you again next week. Have yourself a great week as well.
You too. Have a good one, Richie.
All right. Thank you so much. Of course, that was Real Estate Today, looking at the topic of revamping your home for rent or sale. And this segment was brought to you courtesy of our sponsors, Howard Johnson Realty Limited of unit number 15 in the Ligony Post Mall in Kingston 6. This is Top of the Morning, and you're on the Edge 105 FM.